WRKS Pickens Jackson.
You ready?
Let's go! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now live in the Bank Plus studio, where college football meets the all lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This is the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds, streaming around the world live at the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
where are you?
The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show. Brought to you by the premium cigars at Havana Smoke Shop at the Reservoir and Havana Smoke Shop, I-55 North Frontage Road. With a great selection of premium cigars, you can pick one up today or a half a dozen and enjoy them over the weekend when you throw a steak or some ribs on the grill. Ooh, that sounds good. Ribs sound good. I did some ribs 4th of July. They actually turned out well. I was pretty proud of myself. This is 105.9 The Zone ESPN. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. We are the Out of Bounds Show. We welcome in Steve Robertson. GenesPage.com, Boneyard Podcast. The pitchforks are out on Steve's site over Chris Lemonis losing out on Luke Holman and Braden Montgomery. Steve, the Miami pitcher, the Purdue pitcher may turn out to be, those guys may turn out to be pretty good to good. But there's a lot of concern that this squad could miss a third straight postseason. How concerned should Mississippi State baseball fans be that they missed out on both those guys?
Well, Luke Holman's the bigger miss from State's immediate needs. I mean, Braden Montgomery's arguably the best pitcher, best player in the portal this year. I mean, so obviously you want to add him. And, but when you look at the fact that State does not have a Friday night ace again. Now, granted, not a lot of those guys in the portal this year, maybe a half dozen or so of them, but, State didn't get one. And you're Mississippi State baseball, and it's like, we keep stringing this thing together as best we can, and it finally catches up with us, But, yeah, losing Holman, in my estimation, based on the team itself, the returning team, is the bigger loss. But obviously, Braden Montgomery, a superstar in his own right. If you could have added both of those guys, I had one Major League Baseball scout tell me if State could have got both of those guys, they'd have a number 3 most talented roster in college baseball. When you didn't, now you don't get either. Now, that's not to say you got a bad lineup, because you got Dakota Jordan, who's probably going to be one of the top 10 players taken in the draft, and Hunter Hines probably got it goes on day 2. But yeah, you had an okay portal class, bordering on good. I certainly wouldn't say it was great. But yeah, I think you address some needs, but what's the quality of the players you use to address those needs? That's the question kind of moving forward.
Is best case scenario a 3 seed on the road?
No, I think it's better than that. I think that this is probably a solid number 2. And again, the thing that we're prisoners of the moment, Bo. I mean, we're all in this together, right? And so it's like, it doesn't matter if we're talking State, Ole Miss, whatever. People focus on what's happening now. When you think about, especially the pitching part of this, Justin Parker, a lot of people said State had no chance to get that guy. They do. You think about Bradley Lofton, he's kind of a forgotten guy. It's like people don't even remember that he's the guy that's going to probably be a first-round draft pick, and rarely got to pitch last year. And Durangelo was a guy, too, that he was pretty average at times last year, but other times he was really, really good. And I'm eager to see what those guys do. I think pitching is going to take a sizable step forward this year. To me, the bigger question is, okay, you lose Ledbetter and Clark to the draft, and you don't get an outfielder. So what is it we don't know? I know Connor Hyzak's a guy that they felt like didn't get enough ABs last year. What you got with Dakota Jordan, but that's the thing I think about is, can you match that offensive production? How do you replace the loss of Clark and Ledbetter? And I think Braden Montgomery obviously would have removed that concern. So that's one of those things kind of moving forward is, offensively, there should be a really good lineup, but you don't really have a even trade there from what you've lost to what you brought in.
All right, Steve Robertson, 247 Sports, Gene's Page on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. What about football? What do you make of Arnett's comments as far as the safeties are not anywhere close to where, I know it's early, where they need to be?
Well, he's been a little more positive as of late, and that's one of the things. We've all heard it. All off season, we all know what you're having to replace. The snaps you're having to replace with Jackie Matthews and those guys moving on. But he said at the camp, the last farm practice they had was the best practice so far of the fall. And of course, we didn't get to observe any of that. But Jacoby Albert's a guy that he has mentioned now a couple of times. Got transferred in from Kentucky that has been among the most consistent guys. Marcus Banks, you feel really good there. You got some numbers. But it's about putting together a cohesive group, And so I think they're probably where they want to be in camp right now, considering the situation they inherited. As far as having to replace all these guys. By the time they get ready to play Southeastern, I think the whole thing will be settled. But it's about finding a group that can learn to communicate and defend. And that's the thing with Isaac Smith. I mean, when you watch him out there running around, it's pretty impressive. I mean, and it is. And he's going to have to take some time to kind of figure this thing out. But Isaac Smith is just a different caliber of player. And I say that not disrespectfully to anybody else, but it's kind of like when Chris Jones and Charles Cross and those guys took the field as young guys, you look up and say, this guy's got a really bright future. And that's how I see it with Isaac Smith. And you can just see in the way he carries himself and the way he moves around out there. This guy was born to play safety in the National Football League. And if he can remain healthy and continue to work hard, he's going to get a chance to do that.
How many days are they at the farm for football practice?
Yeah, I think it's 4. I think that's right. I'm kind of doing off the top of my head. It's not like the Junction Boys, they're not out there, in the desert with no water and, love from their mothers or things like that, but and they're getting out there to kind of change it up a little bit. And one thing that Arnett has said is that, talking to some former players, they all remember those Dan Mullen practices on the South Farm. They remember going out there. Remember, you don't have all these amenities, and we spend all this time and money putting together these incredible facilities. Well, you don't have access to that. And I think it's KJ Wright told me before that those are the days you remember. Those are the days going out there in camp, and it makes you want to work hard because when you get back to SEAL, when you get back to the regular practice facility, for regular camp, you feel like you've accomplished something. It's not just going out there going through the motions. Okay, we've survived those farm practices. I think Dan Mullen would be content to be out there all the time, but I think it does build some toughness. I really do. I think it also kind of sends a signal to them as like, hey, this is a work day. Okay, you're away from your phones, you're away from all this other stuff, and we're going to be out here with kind of the bare essentials, and we're going to get some work done kind of away from everybody else. So I think it sends a good message, and I think it says a lot about Arnett just trying to instill and cultivate some toughness in his team.
Oh, what are you hearing that, because he talked about drop passes and the safeties, and look, he's going to be critical. He's the head coach, and it's early, and he knows they got to get better. What are you hearing this trending the right way or positive as far as from the football team?
Well, offensive line play. That's one thing you hear, and it helps having a veteran group, right, Bo? I mean, it's not like you're having to kind of mix and match out there. You've got a lot of guys that played a lot of snaps together, even though it was in a different scheme. And I think every offensive lineman probably in the country will tell you they'd rather run block than pass block. I mean, that's what they're wired to do. It's to get out there and get their hand in the dirt and fire off the line of scrimmage and move some bodies out there. I mean, they want to move people. And there's some people, obviously, that are a little more skilled at pass blocking than run blocking. But I think ideally they want to get out and run block. And State's going to run it about half the time, if not even a little bit more, especially later in ball games when you're trying to put it away. But, there's new formational things you got to deal with. The tight ends group, obviously, you've got some guys got a lot of college experience. But that's a group, too, that we got our eye on. So.
Okay. I got about 30 seconds. You think they'll run it 50% of the time?
Thereabouts, but I think a lot of it's going to be because they have a lead and they're trying to solve the game away. So there you go.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yep.
Steve Robertson, Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Bundle your car and home and save with your Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Favrates.com, F-A-V-E, favrates.com. And, man, Mississippi State baseball fans, I mean, they've got a pretty good roster coming back. I mean, did you want to add to it? Yeah. But missing out on the two big names has really hit, because I see our text line too. Ross Dellinger, college football, Yahoo Sports. 9:30 on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line.